Hi there, welcome to my review of the Hilleberg Tarra. I'm actually wild camping at the moment. I'm on Ben Nevis. There's Ben Nevis. I'm at the halfway lock here. It's about 650 metres up. Been wild camping here over the weekend. It's been gorgeous. First time we've had really proper weather, 20 degrees Celsius. So we're going to talk about the tent here. What I've done is I've double poled my Tarra on the vestibules, both vestibules, front and back. So I've got double poles here, double poles at the back. The rest of it's standard. We'll talk about this vent here as well, what it's like, and overall the whole performance of the tent here. I mean, this tent has been tested. This has really been properly tested. It's had some real tough stuff thrown at it. So we'll see what it's like. We'll talk about that. So I'm going to get inside the tent here, get away from all the other people, tourists that are up here on Ben Nevis. Let's shut this up here. Right. So inside the tent now, the vestibule area is really good. I mean, it's a generous size, and you've got two of them. So you've got two entrances in and out of the tent, which is obviously great. You understand the benefits of that. The storm flap, it did really well. I never had any leakage coming through my zip at all, even though the wind was blowing it open. The zips did really well. So yeah, credit to that there as well. The only thing is that the vestibule doesn't have a vent on the front there, so ventilation is a bit of a problem. What you're meant to do is undo the zips here and allow ventilation through here. Now that's fine, but you do need to open it quite a little bit here, and then that creates a lot of noise because it's flapping around all the time. So it's not ideal really situation there. It's just a make do. If it had the front vent like the other models do, and it had that guy line as well, that guy line is absolutely strong. It's really, there's a lot of strength it adds to the tent, and it's really good on a gale force wind when it comes in on the front there. But it doesn't have that. What it's relying on is the front pole to hold the vestibule up, because of the way it's angled, and that's fine, but it does bend, and it will bend down. And what happens is the force of the wind on the vestibule presses down on it, pushes down on the pole, and then you lose space inside your vestibule. So if you've got any gear in here, what happens is it'll press against your gear, and I don't like that because it's a risk of damaging your outer fly sheet. It could get ripped or damaged or stretched or something. So I didn't like that, but hey, you can manage that. It's not a problem, just by switching your gear around, basically, really. So that's the only thing with the vestibule there. It does take a lot of pressure. The material handled it. I mean, I've got a little bit of something there with it, probably where it's been grinding against something. But all in all, it did well. I mean, it didn't break. Yeah, it didn't break. Now, I had a few problems with the seams. The main problem was in the vestibule. I don't know if you can see just there. There's a hole just there. And I've got these little tiny little holes everywhere throughout the tent. So water was being forced through here. Just with normal rain, it was leaking. But it didn't cause much of a problem. It's just a few little drops, just like so. And then, but when they had a gale force wind, it was just blowing it in. It was like it was raining inside. So much rain was coming in. So I've had to seam seal it, because Hilleberg are not interested in giving you a new fly sheet. And I had to anyway, because I had no campsite to go to. I was on lockdown at the time. I had nowhere to go. So I had to find some seam sealer and then get some. And I fixed it now. It's working. I had to do the whole tent. All of it. Every single seam. I had to do it. But that's working now. That's fine. So we fixed that problem. It's not a problem. The only other issue then, if we move on to water and rain and extreme condition, is the vent, outside vent. So I don't know if you noticed that the outside vent only covers basically the top, this top area here, and doesn't come all the way to the front like it does on the other models, or down further on the sides. So what was happening is, because the front pole was bending down, the wind was pushing the water all the way across the top of the tent, and it was coming underneath the vent, which is not a problem when you got this all closed up. Water never came through the zip, never came through this fabric here. I had this all zipped up. It was all fine. Where it did come in though, I don't know if you see underneath the zips there, there's there's a tiny little gap there. So on both zips have got them right at the bottom of the base of the zip. So I don't know what that gap is there for. But the water was coming in. It was just gushing in. I've got video footage of it. It was just... so forceful that it could just get through that tiny little gap, and it was just gushing in. So it was doing it all night, constantly. The wind was so forceful, it was just getting, the vent wasn't able to stop the wind from getting to that part, and the rain was coming in, and it was just gushing in. Of course, because it's gushing in both sides, just flowing in, this inner fabric is just getting soaking wet. All of it, all of this area here, all of this area is just getting soaking wet. So in the night, I wake up and I'm inspecting the tent, and I noticed that there's water dripping on my dog. She was lying there underneath it. So I investigated, and I could see this is all saturated, and then I could see the rain just dropping inside. And then I had to get my towels, and I had to mop it all up, wring the towel out, mop it up again, wring it out, because it's just constant all night. Good 12 hours it's happening, yeah, all night, to the early hours of the morning, to late hours of the morning. I'm mopping it up, and eventually you just forget it. I just put the towels down and went back to sleep, and just left it till the morning. And my sleeping bag got slightly wet on one side. My dog couldn't sleep there, obviously. I had to move her across. Yeah, and it's just pouring up the water there. So if you've got two people inside the tent, that's a massive problem, because whoever's underneath the vent, he's got a problem there. So it wasn't too much of an issue when it was just sliding across the top and running across. It was just probably leaking a little bit somewhere. But then when the wind switched direction and it was coming in from the side here, it was just blowing it in from both sides. It was just, the wind was so forceful. So that can be fixed, that can be patched up. I don't know how I'm going to do that on my tent. I'm going to have to maybe do some sewing or something. But I'm retiring this tent now, so I'll worry about that another time. Inside the tent, you got plenty of space. The way that it just shapes, it curves around the dome. It's almost not vertical on the sides, but the side walls are, it's just so much space. Yeah, for two people to lie down in this tent, you've got space in between each other. You don't have to be pushed up against the walls. You can sit up, you've got plenty of headroom. It just oozes quality and space, and it just feels great. And if you're inside a storm, you can stay here for days. As long as you've got your supplies, you can stay here for days and just be safe from the weather. Now that I've double poled it, it's made a massive difference to the stability of the tent. Now, I've only had like 50-mile-an-hour gusts of wind last night. That's probably the strongest I've had since I've double poled it. But boy, I can tell the difference there. You've got so many suspension points on the inner tent where it fixes to the outer. It's like it's just absorbing all the energy of the shake, yeah? You just get a little slightly vibration. And of course, the more violent the wind, the more it's going to shake, yeah? But it just absorbs so much energy that it's like the outer tent might be shaking or getting, you know, the wind's forceful, you know, hitting it with some force, but the inside tent, it just doesn't feel like it's like it's moving independently, and it's just absorbing a lot of energy, and it just doesn't get to the inner tent. You don't get that violent shake that you get with the other tents. I've had it where you know, this material is quite taut, the inside tent, the way it just hangs off the inner tent is quite taut. So it's not flapping around on you, you know, it's not moving with the outer tent. It's a lot different, it's totally different to experience to the tunnel tents that I've been in with the Hilleberg tents. So that's a really good plus point. So it can be comfortable. You could just go to sleep. It's just a noise factor, and it's not that noisy compared to a tunnel tent. It's a lot different there. So really good design. We know about the rest of the tent here, but I've had it where I've been pitching and I've had a rainstorm for like half an hour, and the ground's absolutely flooded, and it's running underneath. I could feel the rain underneath my tent, where the rivers are just coming underneath the tent, flowing through. So you're absolutely safe from the outside elements there. That's a really good plus point there. Didn't feel like I was going to get flooded too badly, so I was able to pull up with that. But it does suffer from condensation a lot, this tent. Condensation can be quite bad. Now we're in the drier months, it's a lot better. Like now, at the moment, even though I'm quite high up, the ground's dried out, I'm not getting so much condensation. I can vent the tent a lot easier. It's much better. But when the dew point's quite low and you're in the springtime and the colder months, the condensation build up is quite excessive sometimes, and it takes quite a lot of mopping up to get rid of it before you pack the tent up. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue really, because you really should be using it as a base camp. You know, so you're going to have it up for several days, several weeks, sometimes at a time, and then it won't be too much of an issue. But packing away every day is a bit of a chore. It's a bit excessive. Twice I've had to separate the inner tent from the outer and pack it separately. Other times I have to keep taking it down and mopping it up which is not too bad. In some respects it's easier than a tunnel tent, but it is time consuming, and that's the only thing there. But generous space, it is safe, it is strong, it's extremely strong, it has been tested. I've had its very extreme weather battering the tent, and it stood up to it. It's just that vent, they need to fix that design on the tent there, because one time the water came in so much that I got flooded inside the tent, so that's an extreme case. But other than that, it was really strong. I mean, in good weather you can roll back the vestibule completely open, both ends. You can roll it to there, to there, and to there, and you can have that both ends. You can have lots of nice cool air coming through the tent there, so you don't have, and then you can open, well, you don't have to open up the top vent then, you can just have the mesh here or whatever. Even open up all the vents there, you can let a lot of heat out. It's quite good. So it's quite a versatile tent. It's a really comfortable base camp tent. The only problem is the weight and the pack size. This tent now weighs 5.5 kilos. At 5.5 kilos, you might as well start thinking about the 3-man model up. Then you don't have to double pole it. Just got guy lines that holds it all in place. So there's a consideration there. But definitely I would consider double poling the tent, at least the vestibules, okay, because it hasn't got that front guy line that holds it stable. And definitely have a ground sheet with it, just to protect your tent, and especially in the wet areas. But 2 people can quite comfortably live in this tent for days in a storm, and you're going to feel safe. You're going to feel absolutely safe. It's much better than a tunnel tent. You don't have to risk of the wind changing direction and breaking your tent or anything like that. You just feel safer, more confident, especially with the double poles. With a single pole, I did worry a little bit, but that was just my first time in a gale force storm with it. You know, I'm just worrying about my tent. But other than that, I don't think you really need to worry about it. With double poles, it just makes life a lot more comfortable, gives you a lot more confidence, and it's just less violent shake on the tent then. But with a single pole, it's still doable, it's still fine. I mean, I slept in it. I was subjected to days on end of storm, and it did a really good job. So all in all, yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up. I think it's a really good tent. It's a cracking tent. It's just too much for backpacking, but as a base camp tent, it's a cracking tent. Can't fault it really. Just apart from that vent, that's all there is to it really. So yeah, well, I wish you all happy well camping, and I'll show you the next tent I've got that's coming up soon. And yeah, really impressed with the Hilleberg Tarra. I think it's a great cracking tent there. Just a shame that you can't have anything like this for backpacking because of the weight and the pack size. But as a base camp tent, expedition tent, yeah, fantastic, brilliant tent. Anyway, have fun, happy wild camping, and I'll see you with the next tent. Cheers, bye bye.